I'm Jonah Comstock, Editor-in-Chief of Pharma Forum. I'm here at the Reuters Pharma USA event in Philadelphia, and I'm joined by Kevin Fagan, the President and CEO of the Patient Access Network Foundation. Of the Patient Access Network or of the foundation?
We just go by the PAN Foundation now.
The PAN Foundation. Yep. Kevin, tell me a little bit about yourself and the work you do.
Well, thanks for having us. We are here at Reuters talking a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act and the impact that it's going to have on the pharmaceutical industry, but also the impact for us and our perspective is really the impact that it's going to have on patients.
Right, and educating the pharmaceutical industry about that impact on patients.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. You know, the PAN Foundation has been around for more than 20 years, and we're sort of an important safety net, particularly for those people who are underinsured, and may not be able to afford some of those copays that exist for their pharmaceuticals.
So I caught about 2/3 of your talk today, and you were talking about the Medicare cap in the Inflation Reduction Act and how really that $2,000 is a lot for a person on Medicare in a way that maybe people who are in the bubble of working in pharma don't appreciate, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we all struggle with when any new piece of legislation comes out is really how that impacts all the stakeholders, right? So we begin to look at things, and the presentation that I talked through today basically started out, well, here's the reforms. I mean, this was a historic reform for Medicare, but what does that mean from a beneficiary standpoint? And we had Avalere Health come in, and we commissioned a study from them to actually look at what that meant. And the outcomes of that showed that even with the out-of-pocket cap at $2,000, there's still going to be 2.6 million people who sort of hit that catastrophic phase and are going to be in need of further assistance. And you look at what the government sort of intended, and then you look at the data and how it talks about the impact on the patient. But we went one step further and wanted to talk to the patient. And so we did a national poll of Medicare patients to really understand what that meant. And the feedback that came to us is that, 75% of them are still really worried about that $2,000 cap. That's a lot of money. And I think, in this industry, we look at, the work that we do, and maybe $2,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money to people who are attending this conference. But if you're on a fixed income and you're only making $30,000 or $40,000 a year, we have to look at the holistic cost of that patient's life. And I think that's the piece that PAN is really trying to focus on and get the word about, because pharmaceuticals are a really important aspect of their treatment, but it's one aspect of their treatment. They have doctor copays, they have lab and diagnostic tests, and all of these add up. And then they also have living expenses on top of it. They have to pay rent and buy food. So really that affordability is, it's an important step to have this out-of-pocket cap of $2,000, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be a real need for patient assistance programs.
So what's the solution? Is it a lower cap, or is it other legislation on top of this cap that'll help them in other ways, or a combination?
Well, I think what we're going to see is, as we go through this process, we'll learn lessons and hopefully use those lessons to craft better legislation in the future and encourage better legislation in the future. But at the end of the day, the U.S. healthcare system is a very complex system, and I don't think there's really a magic solution that's going to solve all of these problems for patients.
I've been sort of surprised and impressed by the focus in general at this conference on equity issues.
Yeah.
I have to kind of give Reuters kudos for that. They put them front and center in the main stage. And they've come up on almost every panel. And I think when you think about the pharma world, they get a bad rap.
Yeah.
In reality, most people who work for pharma really do care about the patients.
Oh, absolutely.
Patients to benefit from the things that they create. So when you have the opportunity to talk to a pharma audience here, places like this, what are the things you want them to know or understand? And what are the ways that sort of you're looking to engage with pharma to meet your goals of helping these patients in need?
Yeah, I mean, health equity is clearly something that's critically important in our industry right now. And I think there's a variety of things. I mean, some of the data that we shared today during our panel presentation was sort of the disparate impact that it has on minority communities. So even with this out-of-pocket cap coming into play in 2025 for Medicare, if you look at that number I gave you, 75%, we're still concerned about the $2,000 cap, when you actually look at that broken down by Black American adults, Hispanic, Native Americans, and those with incomes under $50,000, that goes up to about 86% of them are worried. And then when you look at sort of the data stratification from the Avalier research that we commissioned, the out-of-pocket cost hit those minority populations in a more adverse way than they do white populations. So, I mean, one of the messages that I think we're trying to say just in general is this is an important aspect that we need to take into account as we look at patient assistance programs as a whole. And I will tell you personally what we're trying to do at PAN is make sure that our assistance that we provide actually mirrors the communities in need. So we've actually brought on a Chief Diversity and Health Equity Officer several months ago that's even looking at all of our copay programs to say, okay, where is our funding out of alignment with the disease epidemiology? Where is it out of alignment with need? So that we can figure out ourselves how to do better outreach to those communities and make sure that they have access to our programs.
That's great. Anything else we haven't talked about yet that you want to take the opportunity to discuss or share or highlight?
You know, I would just say that the important aspect for people to understand, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry, around the Inflation Reduction Act and the Medicare reforms is it's a positive step for patients. And I think, to your point, pharma cares about patients, just like the nonprofit side of the world does. And we all want the best for patients, and we want them to have access to the best pharmaceutical therapeutics for their disease state. And because of that, what we need to remember is, I think collectively as an industry in the patient business, is what can we do to ensure that we understand the needs of the patient? And that goes back to, you know, we've talked a lot at this conference about the impact on pharmaceutical companies, but we all do this ultimately for patient benefit. And I think that's what's critically important for us to remember is to always pause and understand that impact on the patient, and understand that even with the best intentions of reducing costs and capping out-of-pocket costs, there's still going to be need. And the worst thing we can do as an industry is walk away from that need, because in fact, it could be quite opportunistic, because with that cap, there may be opportunities now for people who never even thought they could possibly afford going on therapeutics to actually enter a regimen of treatment. So our hope is that we're going to see more people treating their disease in a really meaningful way that helps improve their outcomes.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
Oh, nice chatting with you too. Thanks for having me.